I couldn't have picked a nicer day to arrive in Helsinki, the capital of Finland. But unfortunately I couldn't spend all day soaking up the sun and eating Karjalan piiraka. I'd been invited to the Sibelius Academy to learn a bit more about the national instrument of Finland, the Kantele. I'm here at the Sibelius Academy with Pauliina Syrjälä, and she's going to talk to us today about this instrument, the Finnish national instrument, the Kantele. Thanks for inviting me here, and thanks for having me here, and why don't we talk a bit about the instrument?
It's my pleasure. When you talk about Kantele, there is not only one Kantele. It's like a family of many different instruments. And it's kind of funny, it's the national instrument of Finland, but it's also found in many other countries.
Okay.
A very similar instrument like in Estonia and the Baltic countries and in Karelia and many Finnish-related nations that live in Russia and in Siberia and all over the place, really.
Right. So the history is quite an old instrument.
Yes.
It has a big family.
We sort of think that Kantele is 2000 years old, but the history goes further back.
Right.
And there is some research lacking. There are different theories about it, but I think that there would be much more work to do with the history.
Excellent. So tell us about the actual instrument. How is it tuned, and how many strings does it usually have?
So there are very many different Kantele types, and maybe I will just show that the oldest ones were smaller than this one. Mm-hmm. It was one piece of wood that was carved from underneath. You can see that it has been made in this kind of way.
And does that help for the projection of the sound, or is it just for?
Or it could be that there is also a top or one part added. But I think it's how it was made. It varied in different places. It was carved from either here or on the top, and then there was a separate piece of wood if it was carved from the top. And it had at least 5 strings, could have been more, but to begin with it was quite small compared to the ones that you can see today.
Yes.
And
so the name of this instrument is still technically a Kantele,
but we call them, this is 5-string Kantele, and then we have 10-string Kantele and so on. So we just changed the name a bit, but it still has Kantele on it.
And so how does it sound? Is it diatonic? And so it's always tuned in that sort of minor.
Or could be major, or could be something in between.
Right. Okay.
Or at least it was in the old times.
Right.
Then the number of the strings started increasing a lot in the 19th century, and the character of the music started changing because the music that was played on the smaller kanteles hundreds of years ago, that was very much based on improvisation. It was very long-lasting. It was more like a circle. So it kind of went on and on with continuous variations, and in a way it didn't have a beginning and the end.
Right.
It's very different approach to this modern radio hit way that we think that it's 3 minutes and that's it. So it was a different kind of music, but the character of the music started to change also in the 19th century.
Right.
And first Kantele was played so that both hands were doing the same thing in a way.
Right.
And in the 19th century, when the number of the strings started increasing, there became a playing style which is like, for example, compared to piano playing, that the left hand was playing chords and right hand was playing melody.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. But this Kantele, that is my greatest love among all the Kanteles, this also developed in the 19th century. And the specialty with this one is that they started playing so that they were closing some of the strings that you can't hear them.
So you're sort of muting them almost.
Yes, muting some of the strings, and then you strum the rest. And this playing style has existed in many places, but in Finland they started to use a stick in central Finland.
I see.
In the 19th century.
So this is unique to Finnish Kantele music?
Yeah, in a way, yes, this kind of playing style. And also these big Kanteles were diatonic, so usually they had a scale. but this one has separate bass strings. So it has got, originally it had usually around 3 bass strings. Now we have 5 because we have wanted to add some bass strings.
Yes.
But there is a gap in between the bass strings so that you can hit them when you are playing fast.
Right.
And if they would be next to each other, they would be buzzing like all of them at the same time. Because if you play like this, you don't have much time to pluck. It's very fast. Then you could play accompaniment, just the chords, but then it's possible to make the melody clear so that there are some other strings that ring at the same time, but then you kind of point out the melody somehow, like. So in this style there is all the time in the traditional style like accompanying strings.
Yes. Oh, I see. And
when you play.
And so you're actually helping outline the melody with your left hand. Yeah,
the left hand notes that I play are only melody notes. But with the right hand, when I play with the stick, I play both accompanying notes and melody notes at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but do you always play with the stick?
Usually I do, or the traditional style was to play with the stick. Personally, I have developed many different playing styles.
Okay.
Could
we hear some of those?
Yes. And also, in the old days, it was plucking. It was this kind of style, not on this kantele, but on the smaller kanteles.
Right.
It was played plucking, and this strumming came to Finland quite late. I think it has been a lot older style for example, in the Baltic countries and so on.
Would you say that this is almost your standard kantele today?
Yes, me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I play all the different kantele types and I like them all, but because there are so many instruments in the kantele family, if you are a folk musician that plays kantele, you have to choose. And in a way it's quite restricted because we have got also this so-called concert kantele, which has a lever system. It's tuned diatonically, but you can change keys by using the levers.
So it's almost like a harp
system.
It's
really similar system, but it doesn't have a pedal, it has levers.
Interesting.
So in a way, this instrument that dates back to the 19th century, it's kind of historical compared to the most modern type. But still I find this more fascinating.
Yes.
And I think it's partly because it's restricted. So I have to use my imagination, and I feel that I have found out much more interesting playing styles with this instrument than with that one. With that one you can do anything. Wow. And with this one you can't, so you have to kind of find your way around things.
You were saying you can play with an older player.
Yeah.
Does this instrument sort of survive right up, in the north, the reindeer herder man singing, is that tradition still alive
that's a good question, because actually, for example, this stick playing style died in 1980s. So I have never met an old player playing this style, like an authentic old player. I have been learning my tradition from the archive recordings. And it's different because I don't have a personal contact. But then some other kantele playing styles, also the small kantele, what I mentioned, the improvisational, very long-lasting, that also died in beginning of the 20th century.
Wow.
And that we know because of there were some really good collectors that were very good at transcribing, and also some really that kind of recordings that you can't really hear much of it. But we are really lucky because there was a person who was very good at transcribing. So we have an image what it was. But then there are some more modern kantele playing styles that there are old players and it is alive. But I must say that it's not, you can't take it for granted. There are not so many anymore. And I'm actually really lucky because I have been studying and working in that kind of period that I have been playing maybe with 10 old kantele players.
Excellent.
And by now most of them have died. But there are still some of them left. I feel that I'm so honored because when you work with a person like that and you understand the philosophy behind the music and the person's life and you share a lot of things, not only the playing, it really helps you to understand the music also.
Yes.
And to kind of become part of that tradition. because I think personally that although I'm a modern Kantele player, when I play with a person like that, I'm a part of that tradition also. Yeah.
So I think it's probably time that we have a listen to something if you've got a solo piece that you want to play.
Yeah. So in the old days, Kantele players were playing a lot of church bells in the old tradition, the improvisational tradition. And it's kind of understandable that they played church bells because the world was very quiet. They heard mainly, if you think about the time before 19th century, there was mainly other people and the nature and that kind of things that you could hear around you if you lived in a tiny village in the middle of nowhere. And then the church bells was a big kind of outside noise that you could hear.
Yes.
And the church bells were played really beautifully at the time and they had melodies and stuff. So I'm not surprised that the Kantele players were really inspired about them.
Interesting.
And this church bell melody that I got my inspiration from was, I think it was recorded and transcribed in the beginning of the 20th century in Karelia, in eastern Finland. And I like working in that kind of way. I write my own music, make my own compositions, but also sometimes there is a traditional theme that I really like, and I start working on that. And what happened with this one is that I start with the traditional melody, and I actually have all the different melody themes in a way in this piece. But then I get carried away and go somewhere different.
And so what's the piece titled?
Church bells.
Fantastic.
As complicated as that. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Click on the links for more interviews, follow us on Facebook, or subscribe.